So appreciate you guys being here, and I think that the stream is starting right now. I think that we are. So anyway, we're live right now, and appreciate you guys being here. And what we will do is I'm going to answer a couple questions that were asked in last week's comments and messages, and then open it up to Q&A happening right now. So this was the comment from last week. I'm going to pop it up here. See if we can get it up there. Yeah. It's from Dion Vargas. It says, I started getting confused with the dotted notes. So what she was meaning by that is last week I covered a bunch of rhythm stuff, a bunch of stuff about just basically a crash course in rhythm and how to notate things and everything, and probably took on too much for one video. It ended up being like an hour long, which is a little bit more than I really wanted to do. So so I thought I would answer that question because there probably does need to be more clarity on that as you're studying music and understanding it. Excuse me. So this is what we have here. This is these type of things are what we're looking at, and where we're getting confused is what do these dots mean next to notes. So this is actually a pretty easy question to answer, but I think that in the context of all the other things that we were covering, it was just getting kind of buried in with everything else. So just to kind of recap a couple things as you're looking at music and everything, notation, you're going to see usually something like this, which is our time signature, which we talked about. And then you're going to have different measures happening here. So again, this time signature thing here, what this tells you is the top note is going to tell you how many beats. So this is like the number of beats in the measure. And then this is going to tell you like what you're counting as a beat. So in this case, it's a 4. So this would be, it's a quarter note. So basically there's 4 quarter notes, or the equivalent of 4 quarter notes in each of these measures. So that, for the most part, is the context in which we're going to be teaching this. But to review a couple other things you have, so you have your measure, maybe start here. And normally, your normal notes, you got half notes, you've got quarter notes, you've got eighth notes. They can be written like this, or they can be tied together like this. You've got, again, we're not going to go over everything, but you have these different types of notes you have, but then there can be, you can even have 16th notes. That would be like 2 flags on them if you wanted to do it that way. And then our whole note is just 1, which is going to take up 4 beats. So, what the confusion is sometimes you'll see a note that looks like this. I'm going to just draw out a half note with a dot next to it. Okay, that half note with the dot next to it is giving a different duration of how long you're going to be holding that note out. So again, just the half note by itself is going to be 2 beats, but then there's this dot next to it, which is saying we're going to add some time to this. Okay, so right here, this part, the actual note without the dot, it's a half note. So we're saying this is 2 beats. And then the dot is worth half of the note attached to. So this is worth half of the half note. Okay, so if the half note is worth 2, and we're taking half of that, then that means that this is equal to 1 beat. Now, where it kind of gets confusing is later on when we do different notes other than half notes, it kind of brings up some difficulty. You just kind of have to do a math problem basically to figure this out. It's pretty simple though. So essentially this thing is going to be held for, this total thing is going to be held for 3 beats. Okay, so that makes sense. Let me give you another example of it. If we have, let's just do a whole note. A whole note is going to be, it won't fit in a 4/4 measure, but because there's only 4 beats in a measure, in a 4/4 measure. But if you were like, let's say in 6/4, this would work. But anyway, I digress. So we have our half note here, which again is going to be worth 4 beats. And then we have our dot right here that is going to be worth half of that. So half of 4, okay, or half of the whole note, which is equal to 2 beats. So this whole thing is basically 2 plus 4. So we have 4, or 4 plus 2, I guess, equals 6 beats. Okay, so we're just taking half of whatever it's attached to. Okay, now here's where I think that people start to kind of, well, we'll do one more. Yeah, this is where people kind of start to get confused here, and that is the dotted quarter notes and the dotted eighth notes and dotted 16th notes and all that. So here we have a dotted, or we have a dotted eighth or dotted quarter note here. Again, a quarter note is going to be 1 beat. Okay. And then our dot here is, again, it's worth half of the quarter note, which is going to be half a beat. Okay. So all this together, we have 1 plus 1/2 equals 1.5 beats. Now let's look really quick at this in context of like a measure. So on a measure, we talked about this last week. We have, this is going to be a 4/4 measure. So there's 4 beats here, and there's these invisible, I'm going to draw these with this green marker here. These are these like invisible beats right here. Okay. And I'm going to actually do it as in dot. Okay, so this is, here's our like beat 1. It's right at the very beginning. So here's our 1. And then our beat 2 right here, our beat 3, and then finally our beat 4. Okay, so you can see there's 4 beats. These are like the pulses. Remember, we talked about them being kind of like a heartbeat type thing happening here. And so when something lines up directly with these beats, it's great. So, you know, if we were just having, you know, I'm going to kind of extend this measure down here to make it easier to see these. So if we had like, you know, just quarter notes happening here like this makes perfect sense. You know, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. Very, very easy. Half notes, same thing. Even a whole note makes sense. When we start getting into subdividing, that's where people start to get a little confused. So here we're going to put in, this is here's our and. So each of these beats can be divided into and to half as again. And these are our ands. So these are kind of like where syncopation is coming in, offbeat, that kind of thing. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And again, if we were writing this out and we had, you know, something, I'm going to write these this way, something like this, this actually would make perfect sense because these are all lining up. These are all eighth notes here. And so we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So, but what if I don't want to do that? I want to beat a note to last not just a half of a beat or not a whole beat, but I want it to last a beat and a half. Then that's where I can use one of 2 methods. The first that we talked about, we'll just kind of mention it here, is a tie. So this is an eighth note right here. I could tie these together. And so the duration of this right here would last up until right here. Okay. This is where it'd be on. So it's 1 and it's going to end on here. So the 2, actually kind of, I'm going to extend this just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to see. The 2 is not played. It's held for that. So this 1 is lasting here. We do the eighth note here. So we have 1 and 2 and, okay. So our next note that's played here is going to be on the and of 2. Okay. Now that's one way to write it, but we're not stuck to that. We can also write with dotted notes. Okay. So if I did my quarter note again, instead of attaching a tie to it, I'm going to just dot this. And again, remember, this right here is worth 2 beats, and then half of 2 is 1. So this is worth 3 beats. Or I'm sorry, what am I doing? Wrong. I'm thinking of half notes. We have our quarter note, which is worth 1 beat, and then half of 1 is a half. So this is worth 1.5 beats. Again, 1.5. Our same distance is happening here. Okay, now watch this. So what if I were to then write out another one here? Okay, this is again worth 1.5 beats. That's the duration that this is going to be in. And then we're going to, so this duration here is going to last up to here. Okay, because we have, here's our half and here's our whole beat. And so the duration of that is also 1.5. So here we have 1 and 4. That's where our beats are going to be at. So right here, we actually probably, we could put it like an eighth note or something like that. I'm sorry, a quarter note, because that's all that'll fit. There's only one more beat left in this. This is 1.5 plus 1.5 is 3 whole beats, plus this one is 4. Okay. Now let's do it again. This same kind of concept, but instead of using the dotted quarter notes, let's go ahead and do dotted eighth notes. Now here is the deal with the dotted eighth notes. So we divided our beats in half, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we're going to divide that even further. You know, I should probably ask if you have any questions about this point now, go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll try to get to them. Let's see. Burnt Gerbil says the edge has entered the chat. Yeah, dotted eighth notes, perhaps. Yes, the edge from U2 uses the dotted eighth in his delay, and I use that a lot as well. I really like the dotted eighth note sound with the delay. Okay, so here we have not just 1 and 2 and, we have these in between here, and we're going to call these the E and the Okay. So we have 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1, like that. Okay. So again, these are these subdivisions here, the way that we're counting this, the way that your brain might count them, there's nothing set in stone that says you have to count it that way. The easiest way that I know of is to count it this way, but you don't have to count it this way. But this is how typically in music, how people are going to refer to that. So they would say on the and of 2, or the, you know, the of 3 or something, and you would know that it's on the last 16th note, or the 16th beat of that, of the 3. Okay. So again, we have the quarter notes, but what about an eighth note? So here we have an eighth note like that, which is only going to take up that one. This is only taking up a half of a beat. Okay. So this right now, the eighth note, is that duration is right here. Okay. We're on the half mark. So if I put a dot on this, then essentially what I'm saying is I've got this guy, which is he's worth a half a beat. And then this dot is worth half of what it's attached to. So it's worth, what's half of a half is a quarter. So this is worth, together is worth 3/4 of a beat. Okay. So what that looks like in the real world is this lasting here. This is going on the right here. So it's going 1E and okay. So if I had another one of these right here, like that, this would be 1E and, so that's the duration of this. It's getting all those. this would be starting on the 2 E and, okay, because it's worth it's worth 3/4 of a beat. So this one the duration of it would be right here. If that makes sense. Then obviously the way this is spaced out is not perfect, but it's covering 3/4. I could do it again right here. It's kind of create an interesting rhythm. And then this would take in again right here. 1, 2, 3/4 of a beat. Another one here would take in, let's see, where was that? I'm getting confused. Yep. 1, 2, 3 right here. And if we did this, we would end up on the of this. So we'd actually have to have a 16th. Oops. We'd have to have a 16th note to fill that in. So here again, there's the let's see. I'll just put it like where we have our here in the 1. These are where these are landing at. That's how that would be counted. So you'd have like 1 and and E 4 okay. And probably I wouldn't even write it out this way. I would probably use ties if I was writing this out. And that's what we kind of got to last week, which is a little bit easier, is I would probably, I haven't figured this out how I'd write it exactly, but I probably would do something like that. I would write everything in that arena. And then I might even put, since this is on the I might even tie it backwards like that. And it just kind of lines up a little bit easier. There's different ways you could do it. Anyway, so again, now this is all great. And for the most part, the 16th note is kind of where it's most music, unless you're a drummer, that's kind of where things, you don't have to worry about too much beyond that. But if we subdivide this even further, so if we have like, instead of just doing 16th beats, we have 30-second beats. Man, I can't even remember the proper way to count that is, but the in between the 1 and the E, you still have the possibility of that. So if, in other words, if we have a 16th note, okay, with a dot on it, so there's our 16th note. The 16th note is worth the 16th is already worth 1/4 of a beat. And then this is going to be worth 1/2 of a quarter. So it's worth 1/8 of a beat. And so really, if we do the least common denominator type thing on this is kind of like 3/8 of a beat. Okay. Because this is basically the same as 2/4 and 2/8. I mean, then we would add those together. So you can see pretty quickly how the dotted thing happens. Now here's the deal with the way that dots work is they're actually heard a little bit easier than they're played or than they're written. So if you can hear the beat, it actually works a little bit better. If you can hear it played, your ears go, oh, gotcha. I know exactly what you're talking about. Dot, da, dot, da, dot, da, dot. Like it makes sense when you hear it. So if you're confused about this and well, what is this? There's kind of the first side approach is you need to know the math. You need to know this is worth 3. You need to know this is worth 1.5. You need to know that this is worth 3/4. And you need to know, I guess, this is worth 3/8. Okay. However, in practicality, most people, when they're learning to read rhythms, are going to struggle with this And so you need to put it in the context of actually hearing those rhythms. If you can hear the rhythms, they're a lot better. Okay, so that was the first question that we had there. So I appreciate you asking that. And by the way, I'm going to open it up here to questions for anybody that wants has any music theory questions right now. We're going to answer them here in just a second. Excuse me. Let's see. How long have we been going on this stream so far? I can't tell. Forget where on this it is. How long have we been going on this? I can't remember. Maybe almost 10 minutes. Okay, so not bad. So we'll answer one more question here. It's actually from the same person. So by the way, if you have any questions, if you're watching this not live, go ahead and put them in the comments, and maybe next week I can get to your question as well. Anything music theory related, I'd be happy to answer it. Okay, here's the next question. It says, what do you think the best way to write a chart for musicians that has no experience in reading music? Root note over lyrics or root notes using staff sheets? This is for a church worship setting. I'm very familiar with the church worship setting. So I actually probably a pretty good person to ask. If you go to just about any church site, I don't know, the like CCLI or any of the places that put out chord charts, they're going to be written out very, very similarly. Okay. They're going to be very, very similar in the way they're written out. So I'll just kind of show you roughly what they'll have here. So I'll choose blue. You're going to have some sort of, you know what? I might even, no, we're good. Oh, well, yeah, this is good. I was going to turn it sideways because usually it's, actually I will. Let me zoom out just a little bit. This might make this a little bit easier to understand. You can see my messy desk up here. So usually on a chord chart, you're going to see something. It's going to have the title up here again. So you're going to need to have that, obviously. Somewhere on here, it's a good idea to put a BPM, and this is going to be something like, it'll be written like this, and it'll say like 72 or something like that. Or it might even not even say BPM. It might just have, you can write it however you want, but the quarter note, it's saying you're going to have 72 quarter notes in a minute. Okay, that's the tempo that it's at. It's how fast it's being played. Sometimes you might even see an eighth note written if you wanted to do it, something like that. You can also even, sometimes you've even seen people just write BPM as, 72 or 116 or whatever it is. So you're going to have that written up there. Okay. And then over here somewhere you should put a key. So you're going to just like put key of C or something like that. You could put it over here if you wanted to. Something on those lines, just so people will have an idea of what they're playing with right when they start. Okay. The general, especially in like the context of your question, worship music, and Stephen Whitney just asked a question. I'll get to it in a minute. So thanks for asking that. So, with usually the way it's written out here, you're going to have like a verse. Well, actually, before you even do that, I like to even, if I'm writing the chart myself, I will put intro on there, and I will write out whatever the intro is, whatever the chord progression it is. So let's just say, actually, let's say we're in the key of G. So I'm just making this up, but like you'd have G, A minor, you can put a minus sign or an M is probably better. C, D. Let's just say that's your chord progression. And then I will write out like a little note. Maybe you're going to play this for, you can do that if you're writing it out, or you could even just say, that's a repeat sign, by the way, or you can just say, you can just say like 2 times, and we'll put some sort of note that you're going to play that 2 times. Then in the verse, you're going to have the lyrics written out here. Okay. So the lyrics are like this. and then you're going to write your chords on top of that. Now your chords, I recommend trying to write them out as much on the thing as possible. Okay, so you'd have, I'm gonna just keep these same chords. So you have your words. So maybe it's on like the third syllable that actually the chord happens. Go ahead and write it on top of where that down the beat of that chord is over here. And then, you know, maybe this one's right there at the beginning, and then over here it's right there. And then so that's you just write your chords on top of it like that. So this is basic how I would do it. And yes, these are the roots. So I'm just writing out root notes here. So this is very basic. Okay. The aim again, especially with praise and worship music, you're not going to have too many crazy chords. And you might even see, you know, sometimes people write, you know, a second, or, you know, they might have a sus or whatever. If you're just like talking very, very basic and you just need to get it out there, just write the root. Don't worry about anything else. Suspension you might want to write actually, but don't worry about too much. Just adding too many things on there. The basic chord quality of major or minor is going to be what your musicians need to know. So if it's an A minor 7, you don't even have to write that out there. By the way, anytime you're playing a minor chord, you can always add the 7 and it's going to sound good. Also, you can always add the 2 in any chord and it's going to sound okay. It'll just add color to it. So basically you only need to know is the root, and if it's a major or minor chord, that's your basic chord chart. So then, you know, you got your chorus, and it's the same thing. Just rinse and repeat. You're going to write out, your chord progression, whatever it is, I don't know, on top of that. Okay. And then bridge and so on and so forth. Now that is kind of the easiest way to write that. Going to the next level, you might have certain things. Like I said, you might add some color to it. So you'd add like a 7 to it. Okay. So maybe these are 7th notes or 7 chords. Maybe you really want to have, you're adding some things here. The second time it's played through this progression, you're doing a suspension there. Maybe you just like the way certain things sound. You can add those in there as well. If you wanted to add a 6th in there, but this is not set in stone. This is kind of where the color comes in, the kind of musicianship comes into all of this. Another thing you can do too, that is actually probably the next thing to do, even before adding these guys, these little suffixes, is overchords. Overchords, probably need to do a whole lesson on overchords, but basically they're telling the bass player and the keyboard player and everybody what the lowest note you should be playing. So you might have, maybe the second time this is going through, this is G over B. Okay. Maybe you have, this is like a D over F sharp right here. Actually that wouldn't be so if you had like that, and then, you're playing G and A minor and C, something on those lines. This F sharp just says you're playing a D chord, but the lowest note you're playing is F sharp. Okay. And that way it just kind of makes everything sound good. If I'm playing keys and the lowest note that I'm playing is a G, but then the bass player is playing the B, it's okay. If I'm too low on the keyboard, it's not going to sound as good. Now here's where this actually goes to the next level. And unfortunately, most people don't write charts this way. But from a musician standpoint, I actually like writing them this way. And that is as a number chart, or it's like a skeleton chart. You don't even have to use numbers. You can apply this to numbers, but where you're going to have an intro and you write out everything in here. So you can actually, sometimes I'll even just do that. I'll write like an I, and people know that that's an intro. And so our chord progression then would be, if I can remember what I wrote before, something like this, and I'll just write it out again because we're playing it twice. I could write 2 times, but I just write out everything we're playing. If this chord is written like this, that means that this is a measure, that's a measure, that's a measure, that's a measure. If there's nothing underlined or anything like that. And then let's say we go to the verse, I might just write V, or I might write V1. And then again, here's my chord progression. And here's the thing, it's not writing it over lyrics. So you have to be familiar with what the song is and how the song is being played. But what this does is it gives you a lot of room to write in things. Okay. So let's imagine here that our chord progression is not as simple as this, but we have maybe 2 chords per measure. Okay. Well, then I would write this out if it was like, so maybe we have G and then A minor. We want this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You put an underline on it, and that indicates that there's 2 beats per each of these. So our chord progression would look like this. Okay. And actually I'd probably, since there's 4 beats, I would find a way, because I'm writing with a Sharpie on this or whatever, I don't have the space, but I would do something like this. We had our G over B that one time, so maybe we do that. And this is just saying right here, rhythmically, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Now, here's another cool thing that you can do. Let's say on the 4 here, I don't want it to be I don't want to hit this chord on the 4 or the 3. So I want to hit it on the 4. You can just put like 3 hash marks on the top of that and then a 1 right there. And this indicates that you're playing this for 3 beats and it's for 1 there. And in fact, even if you're writing, even if this is written out like this, and you're writing this chord progression out, and the same thing can happen here, so even if you're on top of this and you're not really, I can use that color, and you're writing your lyrics down here and you're writing all this out like this, you can still use these things. You can still go, that's 1 measure right there. You don't have to. And so you can kind of hybrid this too. So you have your lyrics that are written out. These could still be, since they're on top of the words, they don't have to be super, written out musically as far as the rhythms, but still here, what I would do is sometimes I will write out I might write a 4 on top of that, which can be kind of confusing sometimes. Or I'll write out something like that, like a V, not a check mark, but like a V that indicates that that's going to be a hit. And so I might do that, or I might even, cause we're going to hit that on the 4 instead of on the 3, or I might just write out my rhythm right here like that. Or if I'm getting really fancy, then I could, you could even do something like this where, this is 4 beats here. You could even write out like this. And you just write out that rhythm so that they know, oh, this is on the 4. That measure is broken up. And here I probably would try to underline that just to indicate that. But that's the basic way to write out a chart. There's a lot of different ways you could do that as well. But those are just kind of some thoughts on that. Probably need to do a full video on how to do notation and all that. All right. Stephen Whitney, who's a friend of mine, he writes up here, how easy or hard is it to learn the number system? Excuse me. I assume you're meaning the Nashville number system. It's not very hard. It just takes a lot of practice. So again, context is everything. So think about music theory and any sort of music that you're playing and learning is that you're never in a place where you just have a lesson and it's there and oh, this is so easy, I got it. Everything is played within the context of music. So it's not something you can just learn once. So what I mean by that is learning the number system is something that you just need to spend time with. Okay. And the way to do that is you have to put it in context of something. So let me flip this guy back around. All right. So let's just say, for instance, let me just kind of tell you guys what the number system is for those of you that don't know. Like on that chord chart that I played before that was in the key of G, I could write out some like that same thing. I could write 1, 2 minor, underline it, 4, 5. Okay. These chords were G, A minor, C, D. And we've been learning this in music theory, these classes, these online lessons about, why the 1 is the 1 and all that. Let's kind of review on this. So if we're in the key of G, let's write up the notes in our key here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then 1 again. It's like an 8 and or 1. It could be either one. You can think of it either way. And our notes here are going to be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and then G again. That's the major scale. Okay. So these numbers apply to those. Now in another lesson we looked at the 7 chords in every scale, every major key. And they're going to be, I'm going to write major or minor on these here underneath. Let me see if I can do this. It kind of, yeah, okay, we'll do it this way. I'm going to just write a capital N, right. I'm going to write major. I'll just do it. So this is a major chord. This is a minor chord. This is a minor chord. This is a major chord. Major, minor, diminished, and then we're back to where we started. This is for every key. Okay, so every major key is going to be this way. You're going to have major, minor, minor. So the 1 is always major, 2 and the 3 are always minor, the 4 and the 5 are always major, the 6 is always minor, the 7 is diminished. So what that means as far as learning the number system, if you learn it within the key, apply it again practically to something you're playing. Okay, so for example, if we have let's just look at a couple chord progressions like this one we just did on the last example. We have G, A minor, C, and D. You've got this, you've got your music that you're playing or whatever song you're playing. You need to convert this, okay? In your brain, you just need to convert it. So it might just be grabbing a sheet of paper and writing it next to it and just figuring it out, okay? You might have to write out the major scale. You might have to write out this exact thing right here, and that's totally fine. And then you just write out what these are. 2 minor, 4, 5. Okay, gotcha. No big deal. All right. And then as things go further, you have, another progression. Let's say you're going to do, you see like an E minor, D over F sharp, G, D. So then you figure this out. You go, okay, E is the 6. And then it's a minor, so it's always a minor unless it's unless it's gonna be indicated. By the way, so the quality of the chord never changes when you're converting them to numbers. So we have D, which is the 5, okay, over the 7, okay, and then we have the and by the way, this is the 7 in the key. This isn't 7, the 7th chord. So like a D7 chord is actually going to play the flat 7. Anyway, that's another lesson in its own. And then we have our 1 again, and then we have our 5. Okay, so it's just doing this. It's kind of like doing the math. It's just, you got to work through it. You got to spend the time to do it. So grab some chord charts and start working it out. And what ends up happening is you will find that there are certain keys that will right off the bat come in really easy for you. Okay, there'll be certain keys that, like for me, the key of G is like I literally do not even have to think about the numbers of them because I've played so much in the key of G. It is right there. If we're talking about like D flat or something like that, like a kind of a crazy key, my brain has to think a little bit. I actually kind of convert into the key of D and then I flat everything. So sometimes you have to take a couple extra steps with that, but basically the number system is great because you can change in any keys, but you just have to be you can change keys really easily. You just have to be real familiar with the notes of a scale. So you're really familiar. I mean, there's only 7 in any scale, and so you get real familiar with what these are, okay, and then you're going to have no problem. And then what this actually does really well is it translates into ear training pretty well too. You'll start to hear these numbers as much as you know them in the context of the song or whatever. You start to hear what a 5 sounds like. You start to hear what a minor 2 sounds like. You start to hear what a minor 6 sounds like. You start to hear what a 5/7 sounds like. And then all of a sudden, this whole thing the process just starts taking place. And so then you'll start to hear a song in the key of F, and your brain starts to, it's already, those skills are already there. Okay. So that's basically it. I would say, I don't think it's hard to learn the number system. But as far as like the brain, but as far as applying it and being able to think in the number system, you do need to just practice it. It just has to be something you practice a lot. A great way to practice it is to write out the 1, 3, 5 in the key. So again, so like, let's say if you're in the key of G, your 1, 3, 5 is going to be, let's see, let me just figure out how to write this whole thing out here. Yeah. So if we have like our 1, or not our 1, 3, our 1, 4 and our 5, excuse me. So, here, the 1, the 4 and the 5 in the key of G, your 1's going to be G, your 4 is going to be C, your 5 is going to be D. You go down to the key of whatever F, then it's going to be F. Your 4 is going to be B flat. Your 5 is going to be C. If you're in the key of whatever, A, then your 1 is going to be A, and then your 4 is going to be D, and your 5 is going to be E. And you start to get these keys under your belt. Okay, just the 1, 4, 5s of them. Okay, now again, when you have 1, 4, 5 down, well, it's not too hard to you put it into minor 2 to go like, oh well, I know the 1, so obviously the 2 is going to be A minor. The 2 here is going to be G minor. The 2 here is going to be B minor. Well, that was pretty easy because you already had the 1 down. Okay, and then what about the 6th? Well, the 6th is just going to be your next one up from here. So here, your 6 is going to be E minor, and it's always going to be a minor. Sorry. On the key of F, your 6 is going to be D minor. All right. Yeah. The key of A, your 6 is going to be, well, this one's a little bit different. It's going to be F sharp minor. So, but my point is, you start to figure this out, and it makes a lot of help. Okay. I think we have time for one more question, and then we will end the stream here. Let's see. Lillian Reed, good to see you. She says, I reviewed the 7 chords video just ahead of this one. I'm really glad that I did. Yeah. Thanks for going back and watching that. I have more music theory content that I can be, to put out there. I kind of want to put it in the context of things that people are wanting to learn though. So, please guys, do me a favor. If there's something that even you want me to revisit, I'm happy to do that. And I might even just start making some short videos, that aren't even live, just to answer a question. Cause I think that as far as YouTube is concerned, and for more people to discover these teachings on music theory, it'd be good to have, like short, concise videos that are searchable, so like, I don't know, like that, like these are great questions. How to read the number system, an easy way to read the number system. Like I probably could even take this and cut it up if I wanted to. So, anyway, because, like that 7 chords video is probably an hour long. It's a long time to watch for one video just to get that little bit of content. But anyway, I appreciate it, guys. And I appreciate everybody for being here and for watching. You guys rock. And so if I don't see any more here in a second, then let's just go ahead and close it up for the day. And I've got some more videos happening coming up this week that are beyond music theory too. So that's exciting. I'm going to be posting some more guitar related things. Oh, and I also wanted to ask if you guys would be interested. There's only, I think, 6 of you guys on right now. So comment on this if this is good, but also if you're watching this on the replay, comment on this as well. I have a method that I've figured out of how to like take acoustic guitar playing to the next level. This is like, you've got your basic chords down, you've got, you're doing pretty good. And then there's certain things that over the last few years, well, the last, like, I guess when I was about 18, when I started figuring out some really cool ways to play chords on acoustic guitar that don't require bar chords and don't require using a capo on everything, and it just makes everything sound better. So if you're interested in that kind of series, let me know, and I might be doing some of that. I might even do some live streams here on the Monday nights. If we don't have any questions, music theory questions, might just switch into doing some practical guitar lessons. So all right, guys. Basil says great info, cheers. Abby says hi, and then she says why. Okay. And then anyway, well, I'm gonna head on out then, guys. Thank you very, very much for watching. I appreciate you for being here, and we'll see you soon on another stream. So God bless.